let's see what's going on. So anyway, guys, what is going on? It's the one, the only P1 in the building, and welcome back to the channel. It has been a hot minute. It's been a couple weeks, but we are back, and we are back with more content coming up along the way. You know it, you like it. There will be more content along the way. Things are going to be starting to get up and running once again. Meantime, I want to say thank you guys for your endless support throughout everything. It's been a rough couple of weeks, but things are getting ready to be back to normal. Getting ready to bounce back to how things once were. Give some time for people to kind of come in. Some time for people to come in, do the promotion. Um, so that where is the games? So that Okay, now that that is taken care of, let's get into our main and our main point here today. The reason why we are right here at this moment, that is to talk about the one, the only Thursday Night Wars. The one and only the Thursday Night Wars. The battle that isn't a battle, war that isn't a war. So much to be said about these two shows going at it each and every single Thursday night, at least for the next 3 months, that is, until we hear further word. But based on how the way things are going, that seems to be very much the future. If things continue, I think, in the upward trend that is going on. If things continue in the upward trend that is pretty much going to be going on. And this is an interesting time, if I'm being honest, for both shows involved in this. And if you don't know the shows that we're talking about the Rant and Rave podcast, and we're talking about the Hangman Outcast. This is a very much rather interesting time for these shows, as both shows, I think, are going through mini facelifts, if you will, almost. And it's very interesting to see. It's very exciting to see. Both these shows are really pulling their all to grab viewer attention and to grab numbers and to pull off those big YouTube numbers that they're ever so hoping for. So, tomorrow starts the second episode of direct head-to-head competition. Hangman Outcast last week celebrated its 40th episode versus Rant Rave, which is on, I think, episode 77. I want to say I know it's in the 70s. I know it's in the high 70s. I know it's in the high 70s. I'm not exactly too far sure where their last one was, but I know it's in the high 70s to take it at that. But those are very much huge, important numbers for both shows, and they're both really they're both really putting on shows each and every weekend. They're trying to get, and they're trying to be better. They're trying to out better each other, and it's something that you definitely got to get to witness each and every week. Oh, it was right. It was 77. But yeah, it's definitely something to witness and definitely something to take your eye on and to be noted of. Um, you know. So anyway, let's take a look. Let's dive deep into kind of the first week of head-to-head competition between both of these shows. Between both of these shows. Um, as you all know, Rant Rave Podcast is, if there's any show that I think is really going through, if there's a show that's going through this facelift more than Rant and Rave, if there's any show between the two of them that's really going through a facelift, it's easily Rant and Rave Podcast without a doubt. About it's the easiest one of the two to go and get a huge and to have a huge facelift. I think it's the easiest one of the two to say, and that is mainly because the main creator and the co-founder of the show is no longer with as of as of last episode. To officially say last episode, the co-founder of Rant and Rave is no longer with the show, and that is a blessing and a blow to the show in a lot of ways. We're not going to go too far deep into every single way that is a detriment. That is a strength and a detriment, but it has both effects neutrally. Now, overall, I think they're handling the change somewhat well. They did announce a new person. They did announce a new person. They did announce a mystery fourth person to take the place of the departed individual. And unfortunately, some people were expecting a little bit more, to be honest, than what we got. Because what we mainly got in that replacement of the fourth person, in that fourth person, is the return of a former co-host in Andrew Hawking. Now, that for some people's minds may have satisfied some people, but for other people that might have let them down. That is a very possible scenario. And for all the hype up, it honestly was a little deflating. But he continued with the 77th episode, and it was one of the shorter R&R episodes, which is hard to believe. And also saying something, because normally an R&R show lasts a little while, but this show was rather quick, short to the point, and it was interesting. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the show's main competitor, being the Hangman Outcast. Now, anyone who knows Hangman knows that during one of the episodes Live on the Cut, we kind of ripped into the Hangman Outcast a little bit, but for all funs and giggles. But Hangman Outcast decided to make the jump to theirs, and they had their first live episode against R&R. And if you don't know, ratings wise, numbers wise, that episode beat R&R in terms of length and in terms of ratings. That show took the victory over the Rant Rave podcast. So week one goes to Rant. Week one goes to Hangman Outcast. But seeing week one and seeing the stuff that kind of happened over and over again, you could see some things that the show definitely has room. You definitely see some of the holes and some of the gaps in the program. Now, one of the main things about the Hangman Outcast is the fact that its use of unpredictability. Not about it is the main selling point used to promote the show is its unpredictability. The fact that anything and everything could happen in just a matter of a couple hours. The unpredictability factor. While it's definitely a good gimmick and it's definitely something to very much intrigue people, long term, unpredictability isn't going to be the way to sell the show. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that because I want to be annoying. I want to be a jerk. I'm saying that because long term unpredictability usually leads to short-term predictability. Certain things like that are very much possible, and certain things the program definitely needs to be aware of heading forward. You know, and also these two shows are being promoted as Hangman Outcast feels more like a hangout than a podcast. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, if you're labeling if you're treating the show like a podcast, definitely something to maybe on the lines reconsider and maybe think, oh, okay, maybe this is not what we should label our show. Again, nothing wrong, again, nothing wrong with a podcast. Nothing wrong with having a podcast. Nothing wrong with having an outcast. Nothing wrong with any of those two. But the show doesn't feel sometimes like a podcast. And that can be a little bit of a danger. And that can be a little bit of a danger to the program, especially for a program that really considers itself, especially when Charlie considers himself the champion of YouTube podcasting. Definitely something on the lines to maybe reconsider to just a great extent. And I also think the program does need to be somewhat more grounding heading into the weeks and weeks later on. As don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of this show. It's out of all the shows in this community, it is definitely above a lot of shows in the community. A lot in the community. It also definitely needs to be a little more grounded and a little bit more straight and a little bit more straightforward to the point. As many times something can go on and maybe feel a little too dragged out. But again, it's only Kodo. It's only me. It's only Kodo. And I'm only nitpicking to people. I'm only nitpicking to people through television, through a camera and a microphone. But don't get me wrong. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Hangman Outcast. I'm a fan of Rant and Rave, even though Rant and Rave has been known for constant criticism from me myself. The main criticism being the one and only grade levels. Um, Anyone who knows me knows the fact that I hated grade levels because of the fact that they're dull. Only because of the fact of the main reason I hated them, because the fact is just how sometimes they can be straight up dull. And while advertising does play a great part, I will admit, advertising is definitely a big factor into both programs. But don't get me wrong, both shows are doing relatively well comparing to some of the numbers that I get. Compared to some of the numbers I get, I would say both shows do really well. So I don't think, that the fact that R&R doesn't necessarily do well, I think that it got completely, I think ratings-wise, it got decimated by Hangman Outcast. No doubt about it. It got completely decimated, completely thrown out the window. It wasn't even a contest. But I do think that, with that said, I do think that after that first episode, I do think that both shows have a long way to go. Because mainly for a couple reasons. The main reason, like I said earlier, Rant and Rave, I feel like it needs to find its way. It needs to start to find its way post Jordan. And even though I don't like bringing Jordan up in this scenario, the fact is, Rant and Rave is going to feel, Rant and Rave is going to feel different. And they're going to go through some things which might not be the best things to go through right now. With Brandon being gone for 2 episodes right now. And they're putting in they're doing trials to find a 4th co-host. The show is going to feel different. And that difference in feel may be enough to gravitate people towards different programs. Don't get me wrong, people already have their sides on Hangman Outcast and Rant and Rave podcast. People have their sides. People have their sides they want to pick. But when we take in some of the stuff going on the Rant and Rave side, that definitely does weigh a little bit. That definitely does put it a little bit underneath a little bit, it definitely puts a little bit more pressure on the scale, and not in the right way, because the show is already going through a big host change. The show already added two new co-hosts, not even 3 months ago, not even that long ago. Then to have another host leave the show, then to have another, in reality, some people would think a hiatus in this scenario would be a good thing to do. And honestly, I could see that. I could see a hiatus being beneficial for Rant and Rave, especially with the main co-host and the main founder, the other main founder of the program being gone for a couple weeks. This could give the chance for the show to finally get rest, especially for a show that's been going live almost every single week on Thursdays. Eventually that's gotta take a toll. Eventually that takes a toll. Eventually that kind of starts to kick in. Fatigue becomes a real thing. Fatigue becomes a real thing. Quality concerns become real things, real issues that the program for a little bit did kind of suffer through. And I'm not saying this to be the bad guy. I'm saying this as someone who came into the, you know, you know, as someone who's been watching the show for a little, been watching the show from time to time, and has been experiencing certain things, even being a guest on the program myself. There are certain things that do affect the show. There are certain levels of fatigue that in some cases are being felt. There are certain things that feel like they're still finding their way. They're still trying to put the puzzle together. There are some things that just are not going in the way they probably should be going. And that definitely is something that does need to be taken in mind and does need to be kept up with as the progresses through this new era. This is a new era for the program, and we all need to be very encouraging of that. Because this gives even though it sucks that, like I said, Brandon Martin's gonna be gone for 2 weeks, it's giving him a chance to shine, to come out. It's something that people have been pushing for and people have been really wanting for the longest time, because I truly believe that Brandon Martin has a ton of potential to really run with this thing and make it something. I do believe he has tons of potential. He just needs to step out that shell a little bit more. And Brandon, also, if you can get your wrestlers to promote the content that you're doing, oh man, those numbers would be flying through the roof. If you were doing interviews and you had the wrestlers that you were getting promoting their stuff on their own, so promoting the stuff on their own social media, it wouldn't be a contest. You guys would be tearing, and I mean tearing, Hangman Outcast apart each and every week. And you would make them move back to Mondays. That is just nothing but the truth. Especially because a lot of the wrestlers that you guys get on your show do have fairly good social media reach, and I mean fairly good. So it wouldn't be a contest, no doubt about it. It wouldn't be a contest, you know. And plus, that would be beneficial for your program as well, because that would be getting more people's eyes, not only on your channel but on your program. And it would bring in more, and because your show is a very wrestling oriented show, it would appeal to that wrestling audience that you guys are trying to attract onto the program. It's just a good idea all around. It really is. It's a good idea all around. Well, the thing was, Hangman Outcast was on Mondays. But the thing was, they weren't competing directly because Hangman Outcast went live at a much later time than Bofus did. Bofus was like in the middle of the day. Hangman Outcast was like at night. Was very much at night. They're going. Hangman Outcast and Rave are going head to head. They're competing with each other at the same time. You know, that's the thing that we got to keep in mind. They're going at each other at the same time, and we had cameos, and and it was the April Fool's episode. We had a bunch of cameos, but there is one thing that I do have to say about the Hangman Outcast over that first episode. I hate to be that kind of person, but the first episode that you guys did on Thursdays, while you guys completely decimated Rant and Rave, it wasn't one of the more memorable Outcasts. Other than the fact, history-wise, it's very memorable because it's the first time you guys went head-to-head. But quality-wise, and sticking from that show, there wasn't a whole lot that really stuck. And that is something that, while people are not going to feel now, but you got to keep this in mind. A month or 2 months later, if nothing sticks to the show still, those numbers are going to take effect. Those numbers, you're going to start to see changes to those numbers. Those numbers won't remain the same. And, you guys are going to, Thursdays might not be a good move. Don't get me wrong. I like Hangman Outcast. Hangman Outcast is a cool program. But there's got to be something compelling during that program. There's got to be something that makes you intrigued, interested during the program. There's got to be something very much memorable other than the fact that, this is the first episode they went head-to-head, because next episode's not going to have that advantage. Next episode isn't going to have that advantage. As much as I hate to say that, next episode's not going to have that advantage. Next episode, you can't say, we're going head-to-head for the first time, or we're doing, no. Next episode, you've already been head-to-head. Now they need to work on, making the show a little bit more grounded, a little bit more like a little bit more feeling like a program, like I was saying earlier, like the, unpredictability is a big factor. And while that's not necessary, while I'm not saying that can't work for the program, I definitely think they need to roll back with the unpredictability. I think they need to decide that, okay, let's take some steps back. Let's let's take some steps back. Let's see what we can do that's really going to stick. That's really going to entice the viewer, other than the fact that it's just the Hangman Outcast. Because some people just don't, because some people aren't just going to say, this is the Hangman Outcast. They're going to want to see the X, the Y, and the Z. They want to see what else is there. And that is going to be very important going into the next weeks of the Thursday Night Wars. This is going to be very important heading into the Thursday Night Wars. The next couple of weeks, seeing how R&R handles itself without Brandon Martin, seeing how R&R handles itself without Brandon Martin, and with all the other with 4 people who have been to the show relatively shorter times and don't have the same great experience like the other guys do. That is definitely something that's going to have to taken into effect, and how Hangman Outcast can continue to capitalize on the success. They're supposed to have Father James Mitchell come on this Thursday night. That's going to be very interesting to see. That is, if it's going to be interesting if it's actually Father James Mitchell, or if it's just another one of Charlie's fake cameos. Definitely something to keep the eye out for. Definitely something to keep the eye open about. But we're not here to speculate. But we're not here to super speculate. We're here to give an idea of week 1 and week 2, and what could happen in week 2. That's cold open for you. We talk about the past 2 shows. Hmm. But like I said, I do think that Outcast needs to ground itself a little bit more. I do think that they need to try to bring in different elements. They need to try to bring in different things, and they are, and I do think that they need to maybe not rely on so much gimmicks to give them another week in the ratings. You know, maybe try to advance to something else that isn't a giveaway or something like that, because apparently they're supposed to have a giveaway coming up soon too, which by all means is fine. Nothing wrong with having a giveaway. I thought about having giveaways myself at times. There's nothing wrong exactly with having a giveaway, but don't be having. But hopefully this isn't something that we see 3 or 4 times. Hangman out like every 3 or 4 Hangman outcasts. Make it like a one in every 10 or 15. Make it a big deal. Make it like a big deal. Treat it like a big deal, and it will feel like a big deal. You know, focus on the small things. Focus on the small things. Focus on accentuating every single positive that you can, and that goes for both shows. Rant and Rave definitely would be the more wrestling kind of program. Considering the fact that the logo itself is a TNA logo, so it definitely is the more wrestling program out of the 2 programs versus the Outcast, which is the more casual program out of the 2. Well, I shouldn't say casual, but compared to Rent Rave, it definitely is more casual. It's definitely not as strict, which again is fine. Which again is fine. Not every show is, in fact, I think Rant Rave is too strict sometimes. I think that they could change their format. I think that, having topic sometimes can get a little boring, and there's not a whole lot of room for discussion sometimes. And I feel like that should definitely be opened up a little bit more if they had more room for discussion on their program. And maybe if Hangman and Outcast, focused on topics that are, that could have great discussion and could be interpreted many different ways, instead of like something that kind of feels the same way unanimously above everybody, I think could benefit the program. I think could overall benefit the program. We're here to talk about different ways to benefit the program. We're here talking about more ways to benefit the program. We're also here talking about long term because, because we got to take a look at some things past, past this week, past the 4th or 5th week down the road. We got to take a look at things past that. Once things get settled, in, because right now the novelty is there. The fun is there, but after a little bit, that might start to dwindle away, and it's going to be a more regular occasion in the next month or so. Like you said, this is a trial one for the Outcast. They're trying to do this for 3 months to see if it works. It might work. It might not. We don't know. The future is very much uncertain. But both shows have long ways to go. But at the end of the day, I think both shows have very much long ways to go. Any YouTube show has a long way to go. But these two, because they like to poke fun at each other this week, I thought, hey, I could poke fun at them both. Because, hey, I can. Plus, I made the Thursday Night War poster. So, hey, I do what I want. But anyway, this has been Cold Open for Thursday Night Wars for this week. For this first week of program, Hangman Outcast, of course, getting the first point. But keep in mind, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Will Rant and Rave be able to counter back with everything going against it? With almost everything it possibly could going against it? Or will Hangman Outcast be 2-0? We'll find out this Thursday. We'll find out this Thursday night. Be sure to watch either the Rant Podcast on Brand Master Channel or the Hangman Outcast on Hangman Charlie's channel. Until then, take care.